Good afternoon. Hi, Kunal, and welcome back to both of us. Another of our small talk in the small talk series. Though the talk we call it small talk because we started with quantum physics, right?
Yes.
So quantum, and that was your famous Kunal pun. Yeah. So one of the things that I've been wanting to discuss with you for a while. In fact, it started with a certain session that I was doing, and one of the seekers in the session asked me about wealth, creation of wealth in a spiritual light. And would there be the creation of wealth and the enjoyment of wealth, the abundance of wealth in a spiritual creation, you know? And what's the relation between wealth and self-realization and living spiritually? Because according to Indian tradition, of course, you're asked to give up wealth. And asceticism has been celebrated in the Indian tradition. So this whole question came from, how does Integrity Yoga relate to wealth? Because Sri Aurobindo and Mother do not ask you to renounce wealth. So it is in that context I want to ask you. Because surely in the new creation, we are not going to give up wealth. Prosperity, abundance of wealth, Mahalakshmi's grace and force will be not only as important as it is today, but infinitely more important, because wealth and abundance and prosperity are expressions of a divine life. So my first question to you, Kunal, especially because you too are a seeker of the integral path and Vedanta, where are we going with this whole issue of wealth individually for those who are also seeking, which brings the focus square on you, because you are a seeker and you are a businessman and you're dealing with finance. That's your business. So how do you reconcile the three? And how do you take it to the next level, which is global? Globally, we are in a, from whatever I can understand and make out, we're not in a very happy situation financially. And from whatever we have had, our conversation, that we are probably on the edge of some sort of an international financial crisis again. So, Kunal, let's put it all together.
Sure. Lots of things there. Let me try and go maybe one by one. And if I forget or if you have any further questions, kindly ask. First of all, I think wealth means different thing to different people. For some people, wealth is just money, which is the most easiest denomination for everyone to understand.
So and the world is ruled by that more.
So today,
everyone wants to make money.
Today, you have no. I have no idea how many shares of Reliance does Mukesh Ambani have, or how many shares of Tesla does Elon Musk have. But I may know, thanks to Forbes, thanks to so many other institutions, that will say that Mukesh Ambani might be worth $50 billion. I'm making up a number. It's not too far off. Elon Musk is worth $400 billion or 500, depending on where the stock price is today. They aggregate all the wealth and bring it down to a number. Mm-hmm. Because that's what human mind easily understands.
Right.
If they were to tell me that he owns 20% of Tesla shares and he owns 10% of Twitter or 100% of Twitter or blah, 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 I'll not be able to bring everything to a common denominator.
Right.
So the wealth, as the world understands it, it is about money, it is about dollars, it is about rupees, it is about euros or whatever currency. And US dollar is the denomination. That's one part, which is your money, your assets combined into one thing. That is one definition of wealth. For any spiritual seeker who may be still operating in the world as they do, as they have to, as they should, I think this number is just a number.
Okay.
If you have after a point, now that point is different for everyone, can be very subjective. Let's say once you have, there was a day Elon Musk had $1 million worth of wealth. Since then, to 400 billion today, as an example, I don't think after a point it matters how much you have or how much you don't have. It's a number. The number keeps changing, your bank balance keeps changing, but you cannot beyond a point spend. I do not think anybody can or want to or practically would spend, let's say, if you have $1 billion and $1 million a day, or if you have $1 million.
We're talking about personal wealth.
Personal wealth, yes. Sorry. So starting with the personal wealth, then we'll get to the other parts. So wealth is a subjective definition, number one. Number two, the common denominator is put all your assets, shares, bank balance, etc.
Your worth.
Your net worth,
Net worth.
into a number, dollars. That is what people understand, talk about as individual wealth. For spiritual seekers, let's say, who are really serious about that, after a point, this would just be a number. They would not necessarily focus on, I have $1 million, I want to get 10. I have 10, then I want to get 100. Once you're satisfied with whatever you have, whether it's $1 or $1 billion, doesn't matter. Once you're satisfied, you are satisfied, I think.
Okay.
You can stay satisfied unless you relapse into the rat race.
The spiritual seeking would imply a level of contentment with what you have. You're right.
So you will be content. You're okay. You're sort of sorted. All you may want is that you want to put it somewhere where it can grow. You may put it in some investable assets. Could be anything. Could be a stock. Could be a bank FD. Could be real estate. Could be whatever. Whatever you're comfortable with. Where you have to give least attention, and it somehow grows a bit, ideally beats inflation. If you have $100, tomorrow it should not become worth $95, but it should stay 105 if the inflation is 5%. So you can afford a reasonable life for you and your responsibilities around family, work, etc. This is a definition of wealth. Now, of course, wealth, to me, wealth is the freedom to be able to not work, choose not to work.
Right.
To be able to spend time with family, to be able to stay in nature all day, read books, do whatever I feel like, or spend time in Atma Vichar or anything. But the bigger problem I see in the world, I'm still talking personal for a bit, then we'll get to collective and global integration. One thing I find a little strange is that more wealth a person is having after a point, it's inversely proportional to their happiness, to their freedom of choice.
That's interesting. So the more wealth one has is
Inversely proportional.
inversely proportional.
And I'm saying this with experience of having interacted very closely, and you've met some of the people I've interacted with, worth billions each, or millions or more. They just don't have time.
Also,
they
I
don't-
find that they don't have too much of consciousness.
Exactly.
Whatever
Exactly.
consciousness is all wrapped up in the money.
It's wrapped up with the sort of the ego race, rat race we keep running, right? Unfortunately, that is the case with most riches I've come across. I'm sure there are some exceptions. Ratan Tata was one. Maybe there are more. Surely there are more. But most people, majority, if not 99.999%, fall into that category, unfortunately. So they get stuck. And what I see is that most of them or their next generations end up in disputes. More. So it's like, and the example I share at times is, it's like water that is flowing. Flowing water looks good. If you aggregate it at a point, then you get all the mosquitoes and all the smell coming out of it.
Stagnant water.
It's stagnant, right? It's not progressing, and then you have to clean it out eventually. That's at individual level what wealth can do. So today, let's say I want $1 million, and let's say tomorrow I get it. I have to try and be conscious enough, or hopefully content enough, to at some point get to a point where I say million is enough. That's what I wanted. A day old self of mine wanted $1 million. I got $1 million. I'm satisfied. I don't need to spend rest of my time just to earning more and more, right? Earning becomes more just because I want to earn more, not because I can spend more. In principle, I can't. After a point, your habits also don't change.
Right.
So that's at the individual wealth level. First, where wealth should not be just looked at money, should be looked at money plus your freedom in some sense. Okay, whatever the freedom may be different, could be anything, right? Freedom of time, freedom of choice, freedom of not getting stuck. So, what is money? What is $1 billion? What $1 billion is today was probably worth $1 million, let's say 100 years ago. It's what $1 million could buy
Right.
100 years ago, maybe today $1 billion can. And if we go back, now I'm integrating some global finance and capitalism as a system. We'll slowly get to that. If you go back 300-400 years ago, dollar was not the base currency at all. The base currency was, I believe, if I'm not wrong, the Dutch, Netherlands based currency. I forget what it was called. Not Corona, but it was something.
Owner.
Probably. So it was a Dutch currency 300-400 years ago.
Okay.
I think 18th and 19th century was more dominated by British pound because they had the most colonies and their currency was a global trade base.
Yeah. They went with the colonialism.
Right. And then in the late 19th, earlier 20th century, dollar started becoming more prevalent, more accepted because of the rise of the US economy, the industrialization.
Especially after the Second World War. Right?
Correct. After the Second World War, especially. Then the US dollar base became the base currency. And I'm for sure at some point, maybe 10 years, maybe 200 years, dollar will not be a base currency. It would be something else. We don't know.
I believe it's going to be far sooner than 200 years.
Yeah, so I've said 10 to 200 years. 10 years to 200.
10 to 200.
So it's starting to happen, by the way. There's a very famous book and video by a person named Ray Dalio who's talks about the changing world order, where he says that every few centuries, the world order changes, the world dominance changes. And it's like what we learn in spirituality, nothing is permanent. Everything changes, everything evolves. So the base currency would change, the value would change, billion may become a trillion. It was unheard of 1 or 2 decades ago, thinking of $1 trillion company.
Right, yes.
$1 billion was a big number. 50 to 100 was also unheard of. Today, I think I can tell you 5 companies which are worth $1 trillion or more. Google, a couple of days ago, touched $3 trillion. Apple is
Apple was the
$2-3 trillion. Nvidia is $3.5 trillion or so, or maybe 4. Every day it's a new number. Elon Musk individually, I think at some point in the last few days had touched $400 or to $500 billion. So we'll have an individual's net worth touching $1 trillion in a while, in a few days, weeks, months, years, at some point soon. So the point I'm making is that the currency's value depreciates in time in classic capitalism. What's $1 worth today or $100 worth today may be worth $95 next year, maybe worth $90 a year after. The value depreciates of the base currency, any currency you pick. Now, here we are taking money. Of course, you may change it to a share price, share of a company. Its value may rise for a while, it may fall for a while. You may take gold as an example. It may go up, it may go down. So this fluctuates, okay? But we bring it all back to dollars for now. These are the numbers we look at. There are so many millionaires, billionaires in China, in India, in US, endless, right? So that's how the world is going. People are aggregating more and more. Unfortunately, since COVID and even much before, the divide between rich and poor has gotten bigger and bigger.
Rich have become richer. The
Rich have become richer.
getting poorer.
Poor have become poorer. Now that's been happening since I think for a long time, for decades and centuries. I do not think it has ever been great for the poor person unless they find a way of getting lucky or getting rich somehow to climb the ladder and move to the other side of lower middle class and middle class and all that. It's not been a collective growth. So capitalism as a concept, as a system, whilst it may be the only one that has worked, may not be the one that takes us too far down, because there have been, and I'll bring now I'll integrate the global capitalism and money. It has led to lots of issues which we have not paid the consequences for, which we have not paid the price for. So globally, today the world problem is not that we don't have enough resources for 8 billion people. The problem we have is that the rich are hoarding billions and resources while poor are dying of basic air, food, water, sanitation, healthcare, lack of all of that. There's enough for everyone. We just need to allocate it appropriately. So
which is not likely to happen.
Yeah, that's classic.
Given human nature, human greed.
Yes, Yes.
Not likely to happen.
Yes, so that's a challenge, but in a utopian world, maybe it will change. Hopefully, it will change. And we'll talk about.
Philanthropy of individual billionaires don't make much of a difference.
Yeah, it's just a.
Philanthropy has
It's
its
just an ego trip.
own
You know,
purposes, yeah.
I mean, I was growing up. I'll give a very small example. Forget about Bill Gates pledging 30% of his wealth or 80% of his wealth or whatever. Or the classic example, Warren Buffett suddenly realizing that he has $100 billion, he doesn't know what to do with it. So he says, I'll give it to the most needy person, and he gives it to Bill Gates. Right? Um, but I remember growing up in a small temple near my house in India. A person would donate a fan to a temple, and on the fan it would read on the three it would read the person's name and address and everything. I mean, that's an ego trip, nothing else. Philanthropist today is ego trip. If they were to pay their fair share of taxes, if governments were to utilize the taxes appropriately, we'll have majority of problems solved. The problem is rich don't pay taxes, and then government don't utilize it appropriately. They find ways of giving it back to the rich people again, and it's a cartel. So there are enough problems, and I'll not generally just I'll try to not mention things which I can't back up right now. So this is the state of global capitalism. Rich poor divide, problems exist. We see this. Everyone is corrupt at the deepest level. Everyone is corrupt given a choice. You know, as they say, it's a joke I heard a couple of days ago. The person says, this guy is very honest. This guy is very honest. They say this 3-4 times. He said, why don't you make him a police inspector in Punjab? We'll see how honest is he. No disrespect to anyone watching, and sure, you can make it in Haryana or any other place also. So nothing political here, but it was a joke.
What recently happened.
Yeah. Now, coming back, the problem with some of the problems with the global capitalism we see are the following. Governments, I think, are incentivized only to be in power for 5 years, 4 years, whatever the terms are, or get re-elected. That's all they focus on, to retain power. And in those periods, when they are in power, they try to control the world in a way where people have lesser problems or more freebies. If you look at elections in India or in US or anywhere, there will be so many freebies, so many immigrants will get converted into full-time citizens of the country for the vote reasons. They'll drop the interest rates, they'll show the low unemployment rates, they'll start giving the freebies, etc., etc. They keep doing that, right? And as a result, what happens is the following. So I'll take you back maybe a couple of decades, 2.5 decades. In 1999, 2000, we had something called a dot-com crash in US.
Yes.
Where the tech companies in US were overvalued. You could come up with an idea that what was the idea in 1999? Pets.com will sell pets online. Day one valuation, day one meaning first few days, weeks, months, $1 billion. Crashed to zero within few months, went to zero. Now, a lot of people lost a lot of money in the stock markets. So governments kept the interest rates to zero. This was driven by, no offense, Bill Clinton at the time I think was leading. He had an American dream. Everyone should have a house. They started giving home loans at 0% interest, even to people who do not qualify, who cannot even repay the EMIs, who don't even have a job. They called it NINJA, no income, no job applications or something like that. So to save the economy from 2000 crash, they took the bubble and made it bigger, and took it to 2007-8 and called it the housing market crash, subprime crash, where the big bank Lehman Brothers went under, $653 billion lost. And in 2008, the whole market crashed again. Now, US crashes, US sneezes, everyone in the world gets impacted because the economies are over time because of globalization. All the countries are linked. Their currencies are linked. Each country is keeping other countries' currency. US dollar is what everyone keeps. If US dollar goes up or down, their interest rates go up or down, it impacts everyone else.
Right.
They took it to 2008. They did not accept the pain in 2001, 2, 3, where they could rebuild the economy with lesser spend for the government, lesser freebies for the freeholders or so, lesser socialistic things and more taxes. They didn't do that because it's unpopular. They expanded it, took it to 2008 with zero interest rate. In 2008, then they started doing something called quantitative easing, which just means government pumps money in the system. Government starts printing. So US government can print as much as they want. As an example, currency is valued on trust,
Right, yes.
right? Old kings, you would say that this king always pays its debts, right? US government has always paid its debts so far. This will change for sure, matter of time, 10 years or 100 or 200. Because otherwise what they keep doing is they keep printing more dollars.
So you always give this 10 to 200 range.
Yeah, I mean 200, I don't know why I say 200. I think I'm more in the camp of 10 or 10 to 20, but just some people would have a longer period because it can take a century, but this time it won't. I'll tell you why. I'll try to tell you why. US government keeps printing dollars. So there was something earlier in 1872, I think it was called a Bretton Woods Agreement, where they said that to print any country, if they have to print their currency, they have to back it up with some gold.
Right.
Because gold is the oldest precious yellow metal which has survived centuries and centuries. Because of its limited supply, it has been valued. Initially, do you know the coins? The one coin, maybe a dollar coin, the value of the coin was within the coin itself. The gold put in the coin carried that value. So you don't have to rely on a central bank governor signing a document saying, I owe you a dollar. You could take it, melt it up, give it to a jeweler, its value would be $1. If it goes up, it could be 1.1, goes down, it could be 0.9. But the value was contained within it. Later, they came up with the Bretton Woods Agreement. They said you can print physical notes. You don't need to always put gold in it, but back it up with gold. So for $100, you need to have $100 worth of gold. That's what they started with. Then they said not everyone is coming back to redeem $100 ever. It's in circulation. Maybe having $50 worth of gold for $100 printed is okay. So they printed $50 more. They doubled the supply. And today, we've come to a point where nobody has a clue how much gold does US Fed has, behind which they have printed trillions of dollars, which the world still keeps buying. As in, if I'm earning in India, I'll have to give 88 rupees I earn in India to get a US dollar, which they may have printed and they would have nothing to back it up with. It's built on house of cards. And US Fed can never be audited even if US President says audited. They have such constitutional level clearance. So this financial system of people believing in any currency, whether it's Indian rupee or a European euro or a US dollar, is built on trust, is built on lack of understanding of people in the world.
So is this one of the reasons why people are saying that we're on the edge of another crisis?
Yes. Now, the
what do
thing
you
is,
think this another crisis will be?
this could be a mini crisis or a major crisis or a meta crisis, which changes everything. I'll tell you what. So 2001, 2000 crash, some people lost their jobs, economy slowed down, firings happened. I lost my first job in 2001 because of the dot-com crisis. Then in 2007-8, again, some people lost, but in a year, everything was back up, hunky-dory again. In a year, the government printed enough money, they kept going. Large economies of the world, China, Russia, India, many others, have stopped. Between them, the trades are happening in their local currencies. They're not buying US dollars. They're not holding US dollars anymore in their reserves. They are keeping now gold, physical gold. They're moving back to physical gold. That's why gold has double, tripled in the last year or so. Once people stop believing in dollar, and remember, last time it happened 250 years ago with British pound, 300 years ago with the Dutch currency, whatever it was, this has happened. It will happen again, sooner or later. And the pain will be the biggest, I think, would be felt in US, in my view. Because bigger you are, more you have to lose. They are the largest economy. They are so much driven by debt. The government debt is unpayable. I don't know which generations are going to pay it back. 35. So, the countries, every country with each other, so US is the highest debt, about $35 trillion, if I'm not wrong, roughly. Global debt of each country to each other is close to $300 trillion or more.
Whoa.
I really don't know.
So
I really don't. So they create.
it's in the global network.
I owe you $1 trillion. You owe him $1 trillion. He owes him $1 trillion. You keep adding it up, and we all keep spending. Governments keep overspending. And I really wonder, this $300 trillion, who has lent to us? Somebody from Mars who is not in the system? Or are we fooling ourselves? The answer is simple. We are fooling ourselves.
So is there no global body that looks at these things and shows red flags? That doesn't work, does it?
So create a global body. Number one, who will fund it?
Am I-
So,
Yeah.
so you think about World Bank. You think about World Bank.
Yeah.
You think about World Bank.
IMF.
IMF, World Bank, United Nations. I don't know. Take your pick. They'll be funded by some countries.
Yes, of course. And back to the same country, the US, of course.
So US funds it.
Major
US decides it. US drives the agenda. And the bigger problem we face as a system, as a collective, is that everyone feels it's not my problem, it's somebody else's problem. And somebody will come and solve it. We're so used to the superheroic things that somebody will come and save us. It could be a Tom Cruise in a movie, or it could be Jesus, if you talk, or Schumacher, or Jesus, or whoever. Superman. Yeah. So this system of constantly passing the pain of governments overspending, inefficient spending, rich not paying taxes, not a fair allocation, is the outcome of this currently implemented capitalism. And nobody in the system can change it. There's nobody outside to challenge it.
So they're just passing the buck around.
They're just passing the buck around.
That's a good pun.
Yeah. Pass the buck around. Buck may be invaluable, but you pass it around.
Or it might be of no value.
Or of no value. It is already of no value. I mean, how can you have trillions of dollars printed with, I don't know how much gold backing it up? Let's say if everyone today goes to the US Fed governor and says, give me my dollar worth of value or gold, good luck. You'll never get it. It's just built on the belief that everyone will not go to them at the same time. And everyone will keep buying and passing the buck around at a value.
And so how does that, I understand where you're going with this. How does it impact India?
India is a little better place than most other countries. Let's say India compared to Europe, India compared to US, and India compared to, let's say, some other places we'll talk about. Number one, India has a very young population. Relatively average age is 26, 27, I think. So at this point, we'll not have this advantage 30 years later. Today we do. India has a young population. They're all working, willing to work. Most are working. They're all consuming. So if India can make a system in which they produce themselves, create jobs, and have the consumers in-house, then the circular economy within India can grow reasonably well. The whole world is looking at India after China or along with China as a consumer economy. So Americans want to come here and sell, Germans want to come here and sell, Japanese want to come here and sell, because it's a huge consumer market. It is the largest democratic consumer market in the world. Right. That's positive for India, and that's what the current system governments are trying to create. That's good for India. But India is reasonably dependent upon some global markets like America, like China, for some raw materials, for the future things and the present things. So the present things would include chips, rare earth minerals that you need in electronics and stuff, chips that you need in every computer.
This whole thing going on between China and the United States today.
Correct. Right. So India is also dependent because India has never built a semiconductor industry. And to build it initially, it's a lot of investment. And then it makes sense at a scale, at a time, at a future date. That takes years and decades, could take decades, will take years for sure. Now, no government, unfortunately, thinks for that long. They're just thinking about this election and next election and next election and so on. But India has its, these are the limitations. For energy sources, for oil, India is dependent upon Russia, upon America, upon some other countries. So, India has dependence. For global trade, India wants to sell its services like IT services or
Right.
other services to other countries. The bigger dependence we have not yet seen, that we have not yet been addicted to and has become part of our life is things like AI,
Right.
things like social media. Now today we don't have a local system. There is no Indian platform where on which you have all the Facebook and Telegram kind of things happening. You don't have a local YouTube. In China they do, in Russia they do, in India they don't, not yet. India doesn't have an AI that will actually produce future workers, that will get the future jobs done. So India has dependence on other countries, on the world countries, but since COVID and since a while, every country in the world has become like no immigration, buy my products, produce here to sell here, create jobs here. Every country is going like that. So is US. That's what Donald Trump is doing. So is India. India's been doing it for a longer period. So is China. China's been doing it since beginning. Russia's been doing it for a long time. So this is how the world is evolving and the system is evolving. Eventually, whether fortunately India is not as debt ridden as US is. India would not have outstanding debt of $35 trillion or more. India would have maybe a few hundred billion. They can manage it. It's reasonably manageable. I think India relatively is okay placed, but its dependence for defense, for energy, for AI, for chips, so many other things on the global supply chain is still huge. Other than that, India by itself, if you think about India producing its food, eating its food, then how does it matter which AI is working in US? But unfortunately, we are addicted to the devices. We want our cars. We've become more like Americans, where we are spending more than we are earning, etc. So we need lots of things.
Right. Yeah.
For those things, yes, we are somewhere dependent on the rest of the world. But otherwise, in principle, India is reasonably better placed in the world
Relatively
than most other countries.
safer.
Yeah.
Very interesting conversation. I would like to come back to it, and the next conversation we have on this is not just delve a bit deeper into financial crisis or crises. I don't know. Also, I would like you to speak to us about, as we started in the context of spiritual living and seekers, and what can be done in a dynamic way with the stock markets. With you have a company that works with algo trading, and I myself am not just very intellectually interested in it, but I'm also involved with it at one level. So I would like to explore that a bit more from the perspective of spiritual seekers. So we'll come back to that conversation next time. Thank you so much for enlightening us. Thank you.
Thank you.